Welcome to the Beyond Electric Sheep podcast. I'm Brick Thompson.
And I'm Ed Daniels.
Ed, it's been a little bit since we sat down. You've been on some travels.
Yep.
You spent some time in your house in Key West.
Yep.
And you also did a conference that we talked about last month that was around AI.
Right.
Can you remind us what that was? And then I want to
Yeah.
get into how you used AI to help facilitate some of the stuff you did there.
Right. This was a conference of a nonprofit organization, and it was billed as an ideation session on AI. And it's a membership organization, so they brought in their top-level members, about 20, to discuss AI. And I kicked it off by doing a sort of an initial monologue describing AI and the tremendous advancements we've seen, and then we moved into a little more discussion type of format.
Okay. And so I'm sure you were talking to people about how talking to the participants about how AI could be useful in their various things that they're doing. But I think you also used AI to help facilitate before the conference, and I think maybe during the conference too.
Yeah.
You used you built a chat.
Yeah, we tried to use a couple of tools. First of all, before the conference, we did a whole podcast on this, but I built a bot to tell people to answer questions about about the agenda, about the venue, about the kinds of things we'd be discussing, the kind of questions we would have. And of course, this bot was robust enough to also say, well, what should I wear given what the weather's going to be like, and various other kinds of kind of crazy things, but fun types of questions. So anyway, I thought that bot actually turned out pretty well.
You mean it performed well, or, or people got good use out of it?
I think the bot performed well in terms of what was the goal, and part of the goal was just to familiarize people with what the capabilities are for this type of thing. But then the other part of the goal, which is something hopefully people will use for their events going forward, was to just give people an initial idea about what this is all about without necessarily having to talk to a human being or just read a whole bunch of material.
Sure.
So I thought the use of it probably wasn't as high as I hoped. Not as many people logged on. From the 20 people, maybe 10 people got onto it and tried it. But still, I think part of that was just because of the way that this particular bot required a log on, so it would have been better to just make it a little easier to get into. But it was, pretty interesting, and I thought it came out. And it definitely, the people that did try it, I think, got something out of it.
Set a good tone, yeah. Did you use any LLM or AI type stuff during the conference?
Yeah, we used an OtterBot, if you're familiar with Otter.
Otter.ai, yeah.
Right, it's a transcription mechanism. So during the conference itself, we actually monitored the entire conference and were displayed the transcript of the whole meeting as we did it.
Just
and
ran
then a summary
live behind the scenes?
Right. It was okay. We had some
cool.
latency issues, so it maybe wasn't perfect, but we just wanted to demonstrate that.
We had a slight technical glitch there, but we're back. And you were saying that the transcription had some latency.
Yeah, it wasn't quite contemporaneous, if you want to call it that. It wasn't really keeping up with it. But the idea was just to basically show the people in the meeting what could be done with modern AI technology, and I think it's a really important use case, right? You've been using it.
Oh, yeah. The last couple of years of Microsoft conferences that I've attended, they have that. In fact, I remember even 3 years ago thinking, how can they possibly type that fast?
Yeah.
They're not.
Right.
There's transcription software, and it's gotten so good now. At my company, we use Microsoft Teams, or Office 365. At this point, we're transcribing all of our meetings internally and starting to with all of our clients and prospects as well. Because I've found that with a pretty simple prompt through Claude, you can get a really good recap of a meeting with to-dos by person and important decisions made and important topics discussed, where you can condense a half-hour, an hour meeting into about a minute or a 2-minute read. And I think it really increases the value of the time you spent in the meeting.
Right.
I have a feeling that's going to be a use case everybody uses.
And I think an important thing that you mentioned was that you're moving to use this as a default option to do this for every meeting, as opposed to the way it more conventionally is, which is you sort of have to opt in. Now it'd be you would sort of have to opt out in order to not participate in a meeting with that.
Yeah, just a quick rabbit trail on that. I was thinking about some of the pushback I get internally from, customers won't want us to record.
Right.
I don't think you even have to record. I never go back and watch the video of a meeting, but having a transcription, so it's sort of the way I would introduce it is, hey, I'm going to turn on my automatic note taking. It's just a transcript of the meeting. I'm happy to send it to you afterwards. That way I don't need to be typing the whole time and can stay engaged in our discussion. And I don't think people are going to object to that. Yeah.
And, we had before this meeting that I'm talking about, we had those discussions because they'd had pushback before, people recording meetings. Maybe you don't like your appearance for the video side or something like that. But in this one, we decided, especially because of the purpose here, to familiarize people with these tools and sort of urge them towards adoption. It made sense.
I think it's important. I remember back before COVID, when we used video calls a lot in our business, and often people on the other side, outside the company, wouldn't turn on their cameras. They just didn't want to.
Right.
Didn't feel comfortable. And then during COVID, we all had to go remote for a period, and everybody started using cameras, and we're comfortable with it now. In fact, it's to the point now where I can't even imagine doing a phone call instead of a video call if that's easily available, because looking at the person, you get so much better communication.
Just
I think we'll get the
increases
same thing.
Bandwidth of communication, definitely.
I think we'll get the same thing,
One other after observation about that meeting that I wanted to mention quickly, and that is just that I was concerned about the people that were going to be attending. There was such a broad range of people, some people that knew nothing about AI or really weren't highly technical people, and a few people who knew a lot about AI. And then I sort of guessed that we would have people that were optimistic versus pessimistic about the future of AI. And we did a survey before the meeting, so we kind of knew what we were going to run into. But it was interesting, the people that felt like they knew a lot about AI because they've done it for the last 20 years, well, I think we were able to show them that the AI of 20 years ago bears very little resemblance to the AI of today. So I thought that was important. And then I thought that we would get optimistic people and pessimistic people because, you and I talk about P-doom a lot, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And no, there really weren't people that were pessimistic. They were pessimistic, worried about privacy and that sort of issue, corporate data getting into the
especially in
training
healthcare,
matter.
super important,
So people were concerned about that totally rationally, but nobody was worried about the AIs taking over the world and we all end up living in the gutter or something.
Were they worried about it taking their jobs or their employees' jobs?
Nobody was worried about that at all, which was, I thought, pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I thought maybe they should be a little more worried about that.
I mean, what do I know? But my guess is that people who adopt AI as part of their workflow earlier rather than later don't have a risk of losing their jobs. Their jobs may change.
Yep.
They may do different things, but being able to use those tools is going to be a huge premium. I think people who are waiting for them to get good enough to use could end up at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So the sooner the better.
Right. Well, as you and I know, things are changing and advancing at such a rapid rate. If you're kind of out of the picture for a couple of weeks, you miss a huge amount. So if you're not there using the technology, I think that you're right. You run the risk of losing the competition, if you want to call it that.
So what were the couple of biggest takeaways from the conference?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway was, for one thing, that this nonprofit organization itself better get with the program on AI and using AI tools, and that's going to be critical for their survival and success. And that since this organization establishes standards for software development and data exchange, I think they're anticipating, and usually this process of establishing standards takes a long time. It takes, quarterly iterations, and you may not actually update a standard for a couple of years from the time that somebody thinks of a new data element, for example, that should be included. Well, they realize that because of the tools, the ability of these tools to help speed the software development process, that they're going to have to change their workflows a little bit in order to speed up the cycle, because otherwise, again, they'd risk irrelevance in the long run.
It's interesting. I mean, everything's going to accelerate, I think. It's a really good point. Whatever the cycles were that you were, used to in the past are not going to be the same. I mean, we see that in healthcare just in terms of R&D,
Right.
drug discovery, AlphaFold 2, which gives you protein structures that lets you much more quickly get to targeted potential drugs than it used to take in the past, where you were sort of doing it at the bench. So.
Right. So all these things, I mean, usually in conventional business life, we can work a little harder, work a little bit longer. We can, stress out a little bit more and try to make decisions faster, but you weren't able to really change the speed or the pace of innovation that significantly. But now I think we're going to finding out that things are going to change so fast that if you're not using these kind of tools, that you're really going to be, in a difficult situation.
It's applying everywhere. I mean, I think there are maybe certain industries, certain vocations where that's not the case. If you're a personal trainer or a massage therapist or something, although I guess maybe even those at some point, we talked about embodied AI, there may be machines that can do that well.
Right, but just taking it more simply, okay, the physical hands-on part of physical therapy or massage therapy, that's going to stay the same, and you're still probably going to want the human touch.
Right.
But what about the business processes around that? What about booking an appointment, getting feedback afterwards, keeping the customer, the CRM type of activities, all that stuff could be done automatically and at a higher level.
That's right. Yeah. Any other takeaways?
I just thought that it was even the people I was most worried about, the people who say I've been doing AI or neural networks, predictive analytics, that kind of stuff for the last 10 or 20 years, and I feel like they didn't say this, but it came across like they already knew everything about it. I think they all came out of that session appreciating the look at what's happening now, and so I thought that was a good outcome.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it, but I still see that in business where there are people, you'd have to live under a rock not to know about large language models at this point.
Right.
But I do run into business people that are saying, it doesn't apply to my business. I'm not paying any attention to it right now. Some crazy large percentage of Americans have not played with a large language model. So that's going to change.
It's going to change. I mean, for one thing, Microsoft's going to change the operating system on you, and you're going to talk to it.
It's going to be on your phone.
Do your command line or something.
Yeah, Siri is probably going to embody some LLM stuff, I think. Yeah, interesting.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for the update.
Yeah.